Once upon a time, nestled in a valley where emerald hills rolled into a sapphire sky, lived a flock of sheep. Their days were a tranquil symphony of grazing on sweet clover, bleating soft melodies, and basking in the warm sun. Leading them was Alara, a ewe with wool like spun moonlight and eyes that held the wisdom of countless sunsets. She was vigilant, always aware of the shadows that danced at the edges of their peaceful world. For beyond the gentle slopes lay the untamed forest, home to a creature of cunning and hunger, the wolf. This wolf, named Fenris, was a solitary hunter, gaunt and swift, with fur the color of twilight and eyes like smoldering embers. His life was a constant pursuit of survival, a relentless ballet of tracking and preying. He watched the sheep, his hunger a gnawing ache, but Alara's careful watch and the shepherd's faithful dogs kept him at bay. He knew he couldn't simply charge in. He needed a different approach. One frigid winter, when snow blanketed the valley and food was scarce, Fenris's hunger grew desperate. He observed the sheep, noting their communal spirit, their trust in one another. An idea, cold and sharp as the winter air, began to form in his cunning mind. He began to appear, not as a predator, but as a distant, lonely figure. He would sit on a far-off hill, observing the flock, never approaching, never threatening. The younger sheep, less wary than Alara, started to notice him. "Look," one would bleat, "the wolf is just sitting there." Another, more bold, might add, "He looks so sad." Alara, however, felt a prickle of unease. She had seen too many winters to be fooled by a still posture. Yet she kept her counsel, watching Fenris with an unblinking gaze. As the weeks passed, Fenris escalated his act. He would sometimes let out a mournful howl, a sound that carried the desolation of the empty forest. He even left a small offering one day, a half-eaten rabbit near the edge of the pasture, a gesture meant to convey his own struggle for survival. Slowly, subtly, the seeds of empathy began to sprout among the flock. Some of the younger, more naive sheep started to believe Fenris was misunderstood, a victim of circumstance. "He's just hungry," they whispered. "Perhaps he's not like the others." One day, a lamb, adventurous and impulsive, wandered too far from the flock. Fenris, hidden, watched its approach. Instead of pouncing, he subtly herded it back towards the main group, disappearing before anyone could truly register his presence. The lamb, startled but unharmed, recounted its tale, and the narrative of the good wolf began to take hold. The turning point came during a fierce blizzard. The winds howled and the snow fell thick and fast. One of the older ewes, weak and disoriented, collapsed far from the shelter of the flock. Alara saw her, but the storm was too strong, the risk too great for her to venture out alone. Suddenly, a dark shape emerged through the swirling snow. It was Fenris. He approached the fallen ewe, not with the predator's crouch, but with a surprising gentleness. He nudged her, pushing her slowly, painstakingly, back towards the bewildered flock, before vanishing into the whiteout once more. The sheep were stunned. Fenris, the feared wolf, had saved one of their own. The whispers turned into open discussions. "He saved her. He's not evil after all." The sentiment grew, fueled by the relief and the genuine warmth of the saved ewe. Alara, while grateful for the ewe's rescue, felt a chill that had nothing to do with the snow. She knew the depths of a wolf's nature. This act, while seemingly selfless, felt too perfectly orchestrated. Yet the tide of opinion was against her. The flock, swept up in their newfound understanding, began to advocate for Fenris. They approached the shepherds, pleading for a truce. "He's changed," they bleated. "He's shown us kindness." The shepherds, though wary, were swayed by the sheer unanimity of the flock's pleas and the unusual tale of the rescue. They agreed to a tentative truce, allowing Fenris to approach the edges of the pasture as long as he showed no aggression. Fenris, now an accepted, albeit still distant presence, would sometimes sit near the flock, observing them, his eyes still holding that ancient, unreadable glint. The younger sheep would even approach him, cautiously at first, then with increasing boldness, offering him scraps of grass. But one moonless night, the air grew heavy with an unfamiliar scent. Alara, her senses always attuned, felt a tremor of dread. She watched as Fenris, no longer a solitary figure, met with other shadows at the edge of the forest. The gentle wolf act had been a ruse, a sophisticated infiltration. He hadn't just saved the ewe out of kindness, he had done it to gain their trust, to dismantle their defenses from within. The next morning, the sun rose over a tragic scene. Several sheep were missing, and amidst the scattered wool and the telltale tracks, the illusion shattered. Fenris, the good wolf, had led his pack to an easy meal. The remaining sheep were heartbroken, their trust shattered, their innocence lost. Alara, her worst fears confirmed, gathered the bewildered flock. "We learned a painful lesson," she said, her voice heavy with sorrow. "Not all kindness is true kindness. Some smiles hide sharp teeth, and some gestures of peace are merely the prelude to the hunt." From that day on, the sheep were warier than ever. They rebuilt their defenses, strengthening their bonds with the shepherds and their dogs. They understood now that while compassion was a virtue, it must always be tempered with discernment, for the world held both genuine warmth and deceptive cunning. And though the memory of Fenris lingered like a cold shadow, it served as a stark reminder. Even in the gentlest of landscapes, vigilance remains the truest guardian of peace.